and welcome to this episode of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you to the world of online communications in a show which was the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. And a good shout out to our listeners on Hope Radio as well. We hope you're enjoying the show. So, in usual fashion, we ask how the weather has been where we all are this week. So, let's start with our special guest, Damian Griffiths in Lewisham. Damian, how are you?
Hi,
Where are you? Where are you? And how's the weather?
we're in Lewisham, that's southeast London. The weather is pretty bad. It's not actually raining at the moment, but last night it was raining heavily. How is the
Okay.
weather where you are?
Well, in Birmingham, has been raining, but I did manage to get out for a walk because it's so good for my mental health to get outside for part of the
Yeah,
day, and I'm hoping to get out again later. And at the moment, it seems to be just grey, no no other precipitation so far.
so
And Swain, how are you? Where are you? And how's the weather?
I'm joining you from Kirkwall in Orkney as usual, and as usual, the weather here is cool, but it is very bright today, and it looks like quite a nice day. I'll be out later with the dogs.
Excellent. Well, we'll come back to our special guest, Damien, in a minute, and but first we'll go through some of the things that we're marking around this time. And for those of you who are regular listeners or watchers of the Dr. Tech Show, we're about to take our summer break, so we are going to be marking things that are going to be happening in July and August, and we'll be rejoining you in August. So please stick with us and come back to us on the 9th of August when we restart the show. For Tech Talk in Hope Radio, we'll have something different. So stay tuned and we'll speak to you again next week. For the 6th to the 12th of July, two suppliers to the care sector have come up with an awareness week dedicated to celebrating care staff following a trying period for the industry. This is called Glad to Care Awareness Week. The suppliers are Person-Centered Software and Autumna, and they've joined forces to launch Glad to Care Awareness Week, scheduled to take place, as I say, from the 6th to 12th of July, with the aim of rolling it out as an annual event. And this will show appreciation for the contributors carers make to the lives of service users, their families, and community members, and aims to change the public's perception of the care sector. The speakers say that their aim with Glad to Care Awareness Week is to challenge the public's perception of care by shining a light on all of the incredible work that's been done and continues to be done within the industry, and they'd like as many care providers and care workers to get involved as possible. And through the initiative, carers will be encouraged to highlight reasons why they are glad to care by sharing stories, photos, and videos on their social media channels to showcase milestone moments that have made them proud to be caregivers. I have to say, as someone who has benefited from caregiving in my family, those people who can do that are amazing, and they deserve all the credit that we can give them. So other things that we've picked up that are happening around this time and into July and August. On the 14th of July, in 1992, start this again. 386 BSD. Now, Swain knows what that is, and Damien may know as well. That was released by Lynn Jollitz and William Jollitz, starting the open source operating system revolution. And Linus Torvalds released Linux soon afterwards. So now, who knows what about Linux? Who knows those numbers? Swain, you kind of had a guess of what they were last week.
I did a bit of really interesting research on Wikipedia and found that it was indeed a version of what used to be called the Berkeley software distribution of Unix, which was made public domain on the date that you say, and therefore it could run on Intel-based PC computers. So that was all very exciting at the time, although I don't really remember it happening. It's not an age thing, it's just I wasn't paying attention. So I guess that all the various PC based Linux distributions that we have now, like Ubuntu and Red Hat and goodness knows what all, I guess they would all start roughly here.
Okay. Damien, are you familiar with 386 BSD?
They're sort of we mainly deal with Windows laptops here, but we did start running Linux, and we tended to use Mint, Ulyana, or something like that. So we set it up to look like Windows 10, So we had quite a strong Windows 10 bias because the people that use the computers, that's what they'll be more familiar with. And we use Windows
Absolutely.
where we can. But I mean, there's no doubt that Linux does run faster. We're just a bit risk averse about people using unfamiliar operating systems.
Yeah.
We've talked about that previously on the show, and we've kind of come and go with people's attitudes towards it. I suppose it depends on your expertise and your familiarity and stuff. Okay, another date we picked up was the 21st of July, and in 1969, this was the date that when Neil Armstrong became the first person to step on the moon at 2:56.15 a.m. GMT on Apollo 11. 69. I would have been very young then.
I was 3. I don't remember it.
Yeah, I was a bit older, but I'm not saying how older. No, I do. I know people who for whom that was a huge memory. You know, watching the TV, having a TV to watch it, was remarkable. So it is one of those things that sticks in your memory, I suppose. Moving forward to the 6th of August, this was the date in 1991 when Tim Berners-Lee released his files describing his idea for the World Wide Web, and it debuted as a publicly available service on the internet. And this was the game changer, wasn't it? This was the thing that brought the internet into people's homes and lives. And I'm sure people said at the time, this will never catch on, but obviously it's become entrenched in all our lives, and for me very much for the better, and obviously for all of us helping people get online, it's a key thing. I'm always very proud to say that Tim Berners-Lee, was he born in Birmingham? His mother was certainly born in Birmingham, so it's nice to have that
well,
connection.
yes.
Yeah 1991. Damien, were you online then? Did you how far back do you go?
No, I probably wasn't online till about 1998. So I was quite a
Okay.
late starter, really, compared to some people.
Not too late though, a lot earlier than some of our listeners. Yeah.
I remember someone telling me there's a cable being run across the Atlantic, and this will mean the internet will come to the UK. That was 1995. I had no idea what he was talking about or why that was of any interest at all.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I do remember the early days of the World Wide Web. I was working in a university at the time, so we were quite sniffy about the whole thing because we already had our national network as far as we were concerned, and we really couldn't see what the purpose of this newfangled thing was. But within 18 months, probably, we were proved completely wrong, and we were also joining up and connecting networks that were previously not publicly available into the new thing. So it's a bit, as you say, Pauline, it's been the transformative invention of at least the last generation or two.
Absolutely. And in the 80s, again showing my age, I was at library school, and computers were an option, would you believe it? For the then budding librarians, and I didn't take it.
Oh wow!
I don't know what happened. My dad did say that might be interesting, but no, nothing more.
Thought, why would I want to do that?
Exactly. The option I chose was authors, the media, and libraries. Now that has still been useful, but I wish I had done computers then. It just would have been my life would have been different. I mean, I did get jobs working for OCLC and for other computer-based organizations, but anyway. Okay, and another date we've picked up is the 7th of August, also my birthday, for anybody who wants to know, and send me nice techie presents. In 1955, this was when Tokyo Telecommunications Engineering, the precursor to Sony, began selling its first transistor radios in Japan. So 1955.
Wow.
You kind of think, we've had transistor radios for like 100 years, but obviously not,
No.
Yeah, 55. It's long enough, but not very long. Okay, so and we've picked up an event that we'd like to mention, which is one of our previous guests, Ben Haddock, from Sandwell Fab Lab, and his colleague Anne Scrimshaw at Sandwell Fab Lab run these monthly tech. What's it say on the screen? Tech Tuesday drop-ins or events, mostly for people in the college. In the college
event for teachers, yes.
Yeah, so mostly people in the college, but I've been, and I can highly recommend it. It's not exclusive, So this is how to set up your own virtual reality classroom. And on this section, which is on tomorrow, Tuesday, 29th of June, 4:30 to 5:30, Ben Haddock is going to introduce us to the incredible world of virtual reality and how you can use this exciting technology to transport your learners to new worlds, environments, and experiences. And Ben will also talk about the Fab Lab's journey setting up VR classrooms, including some of their advice and findings. So that'll be to do with the different types of apps and headsets available to educators. And they're also going to welcome Christoph Mallet, CEO and co-founder of Body Swaps, who will explain how VR platforms such as his can be used for soft skills training. I think that's also known as communications training, and very vital, I think, to all of us, and even job interviews. You'll also get the chance to see some of the exciting work Sandal College has been embarking on with Body Swaps recently in virtual reality. It's interesting about talking about soft skills training for the jobs and stuff. Dr. Sue Black retweeted a thing this morning, or it might be on LinkedIn, asking people to fill in a survey asking what junior software developers and data engineers, what kind of skills they should have and knowledge and stuff. And to me, it seemed obvious that there was one of the main questions was Python or Python or but anyway, we won't go there just right now. But the other question they asked, what else would you want software developers and data engineers to have? And I said, these communication skills, obviously, but for me anyway, diversity, equality, equity, and inclusion, knowing those kind of things, and knowing that there's a tech good community out there, because I think a lot of people get involved in the tech world and don't realize there are people like us around the world who are doing technology so that we can help other people for social good. So yeah, so I'd like to shout out for Sue's survey and encouragement for the Tech for Good community. Okay, so we're moving on to our very special guest, Damian Griffiths from catbytes. Damian is the founder and director of catbytes in Lewisham. And prior to founding catbytes, Damian worked as a web developer in London for 15 years. And 60 years ago, he started working on a project helping elderly people to use the internet in Lewisham, where he lives. And that's what inspired him to set up the company catbytes. Catbytes is a social enterprise which promotes digital inclusion in the borough of Lewisham. And Damian tells us that digital exclusion is experienced by many people in Lewisham with two main forms: one, lacking a device which can enable digital tasks to be performed and or lacking an internet connection, and two, lacking the knowledge of how to use technology to perform these tasks. And he goes on to say that very often these two kinds of exclusion are experienced by people simultaneously. And so catbytes' aim is to provide a complete service to people who are digitally excluded. They provide them with a device and train them to use it. And they do this by requesting donations of secondhand devices from the public and recruiting volunteers to refurbish and distribute them and teach clients in their use. They call the volunteers who provide training digital buddies, and this full service approach is to the knowledge of Damian and the catbytes team unique. Catbytes is put in touch with clients for their service by organizations that support people who are likely to be digitally excluded. And these include organizations that support the elderly, people with mental health difficulties, refugees, isolated individuals, and homeless people. And they call these organizations referrers. And I know from Catbytes' website that using donated laptops, computers, tablets, and phones, a team of volunteers have managed to revamp and repurpose over 150 devices to be loaned out to families and individuals who are most in need. And that number may have increased, Damian, since the website was written on.
Yeah, it is quite a lot more than that now. So that's a bit out of date. I think it's 450 now.
Oh, brilliant.
But I would say, on the other hand, talking to this audience here, it might not be unique, but it's sort of unique in our area, because that was actually from a funding application, that description.
Yeah. I think it's good to have that. And I'm going to various meetings where digital inclusion and exclusion is talked about, a lot, with my new job as digital literacy coordinator with Northfield Community Partnership. And there's a lot of work going on, but it's not completely coordinated yet. So it's great to hear about projects like yours that are happening, and we're delighted to have you on the show. So please feel welcome to tell us, and we'd love to hear more about your kind of early start in digital world, and how you came to be where you are now.
Well, yeah, I suppose I wanted to do something locally because I live in Lewisham. So I joined, I was in between contracts. I worked in web development, as you said, and I joined the local time bank, the Rushy Green Time Bank, who are a sort of local volunteering connecting organisation. And they put me in touch with an organisation called My Complete Focus, who are doing techie stuff already. And they said, we've got some money to work with technology and older people. So I said, oh, why don't we teach technology to older people? And I knew an organisation who had already done something like that. So really, we just copied what they did. But we started up off Tuesday afternoon sessions. Just the Lewisham Pensioners Forum got us in touch with a lot of older people, and then they came down, and it just carried on. And then I had to get another job because I ran out of money. And the employer for my next job said, oh, you can have the afternoon off too. I asked him if I could, and he said, yeah, you can. So we just carried on doing that. And I was the main developer at that company, but they didn't have that much work for me. So, you know, working in IT, I got to a point where it kind of seemed a bit easy just to do these jobs that, you know, you're being paid much more than some NHS staff for not doing very much. So I sort of thought it would be good to do. I mean, doing this, so the boss I had, he sold the company. I decided to do it part-time, full-time. And it's a tiny fraction of what I was earning, but I haven't really looked back because it's much more rewarding to be helping people. And it's at a time when there's a lot of people who realize they can't get away with not using the internet now. So there is quite a lot of demand. You know, we don't have to go around sort of proselytizing for using the internet because people just realize they can't get away with not using it, unfortunately, in a way. A lot of older people don't want to use, they don't want to do forms and that sort of thing, but everything has been moved online, you know, by Lewisham Council. And also they feel excluded socially. Very often their grandchildren give them a device and they don't have the patience or the time to teach them how to use it. But since the lockdown, it's moved also what we're doing into getting donations from the public of laptops and desktop computers and refurbishing them, wiping them and refurbishing them, and then distributing them to people. And the main driver for that was the schools. So we're distributing to school children, but then we've moved back. Now the schools, the demand has been met to a greater extent by the government. We've moved back towards supporting isolated people, elderly people, people who are excluded from digital in one way or another. But now we provide the device and the training. So far, my experience has been you get one group of people who are like technological altruists who know a lot about tech, but don't necessarily have the background in the voluntary sector. They kind of do their own thing and then distribute. And that's happened a lot during the lockdown. And then you get other people that do teaching and training, which is what's more often called digital inclusion, and quite often is driven by people who are not particularly technical. So we're a sort of organization that's trying to bring those two elements together. And that's what I think is slightly different.
That's great. I think it's one of the great lessons of the pandemic is how effective it can be to bring these two elements you talk about together. I mean, the only other issue that some people have is access to enough data to be able to actually connect the device. But that's also, you know, those three things together. It's great to hear another example of a kind of holistic approach in Lewisham. Yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, with the data, that's a really good point, and there's quite a lot of talk about that, and no one really knows if that could ever be solved, except at a higher level, you know, sort of government level. What we do, I mean, there was recently a scheme called by O2 called community calling. I don't know if that was also run where you are, but they were providing free data.
I think it's a national program. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you get free data for a year with a mobile phone. So we didn't actually sign up to that, but some partner organisations in the borough provide the phones and we provide the laptops so that it can be used as a tether. So it works a bit like that. But in terms of cheap all we're doing is advising on cheap alternatives at the moment. So BT, they changed the name of it, haven't they? But BT Basics and Broadband, but it's now called something else. But that's for people on benefits. And then, am I allowed to say names of all companies?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
okay.
Absolutely, yes,
And-
definitely.
They can feel free to sponsor us later if they wish.
Yeah.
But,
Sorry, yeah. and Labara are currently doing a fairly cheap data, sort of rolling data sim, £6 a month for 10 gigabytes. You know, it's okay. So with a mini Wi-Fi hub or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, things like that. But there's no real perfect
that's-
solution for that yet.
No, I've done some research, but I always give the caveat with my research that things can change in the tech world like overnight nearly. It's certainly by the end of the week. But I've recommended Smarty or Voxy to people for data packages. But
Yeah,
you know, I'm always happy to hear about newer ones. And actually, interesting you mentioned community calling. We actually have a guest from Community Calling coming on the show in August, so that's really good timing. We talked about them. They work with Hubbub. We talked about them on previous shows, so it's good to see those connections coming up again.
yeah.
Using my internet connection to do a search, I think the BT package is now called Home Essentials. Is that the one?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. I think it's £15 a month.
That's right. Yes. According to moneysavingexpert.com.
Yeah.
And is that affordable for people?
Well,
Is that affordable? Do you think, Damian?
I'm not convinced. I think I don't know how with the BT broadband and basics, you had to pay the initial setup cost, and also you didn't get the cost from the first month of at the low rate initially. It had to be refunded to you, so there could be an initial cost of £60, where then £20 would be refunded, and the setup wasn't free. And for some people, that was a little bit steep, you know. So these little, you know, they can make a difference. These monthly amounts, you know, £10, £15, everything can make a difference to what people psychologically feel that they're able to afford. So how they feel about
absolutely.
it
And
looks-
of course, and of course,
Sorry.
if you don't have access, sorry, if you don't have access to the internet to be able to find these deals and stuff, then that's okay. If you don't have access to the internet to find deals, then you can feel, you know, excluded from, you know, even before you start trying to build your package.
That's why we'd offer people some kind of support.
It's interesting, Damian.
Is it annoying? Are you okay?
And what?
Well, you're joining us from your fairly busy office, Damian, but we can still hear you. Just keep going.
Oh, it's just there's a club that have just started today, and they play dominoes, and I think that's the noise that's coming through probably. I'm not sure what I can do.
That's good to know what the noise is. Yeah, I've been in pubs where dominoes have been played, and the noise level can get really high.
Dominoes can get very heated.
Yes, absolutely. So what kind of space are you in, Damian? Tell us a bit about it.
So this is Ewart Community Hall, and it's a community centre that's owned by the housing co-op that we're part of, which is the Ewart Road Housing Co-op. And there's a hall next door where during the lockdown it's been very useful for us for storing desktops and horrible things like CRT monitors that have been donated without us being given sufficient warning. Just left with us, but right now it's being actually in active use again from today. So I didn't realise it was going to be today, but so
oh well, there we are.
This is Bishop Leroy's group, and so anyway, so it's going to become more lively from now, and we won't be able to use it for that.
I'm glad you said it was dominoes because I can now hear the dominoes very clearly.
Yeah. Well, it's probably.
But we can hear you loud and clear, Damian. So please don't worry about it.
Okay, that's good.
So who else comes into the building? Are you all ages and all different types of work?
Yeah. So we've got this is the office that we hire out, and so here is Matt, who's fixing.
Hi, Matt.
And Rachel, who
hi Rachel.
Hello, Rachel.
Who works here. She's like the first staff member we've had. And actually, when you're talking about Linux and things like that, Matt has been very patient and silent while I talked about that because he knows a lot more about that than me. He's probably gritting his teeth when I talk about it. But, yeah, so we've got volunteers to fix things, volunteers to work on our admin system because we've got a kind of inventory, and I'm building the inventory because that's where the web development does come back in use, the online tool. And then we have people who volunteers that we call buddies, who sit with people and help them do the one-on-one support. So at the moment, on Tuesdays, we run a club in there. Apart from that, the hall is pretty much empty, although obviously that's ended now. Yeah. Oh, this is it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sweyn has brought on screen your website, Catbytes Digital Community. Yeah. Yeah. So did you build this site yourself, Damian?
This is a Drupal site. I built it, yeah, but
Yeah.
It's based on a Drupal theme.
Yeah.
I usually work with WordPress for small sites, but you know, this was
That's interesting. So why did you go with Drupal for this one?
the first thing I ever did was a project with a church where we decided to do it with Drupal. And after several months working with Drupal, I thought this could be easier. So I moved to WordPress for subsequent projects. But for this one, it's always my own personal site's always been Drupal. So it's just gone from 7 to 8. And then I built the theme. So it's been through various different. Now it looks okay, apparently, but it used to look a lot ropier.
Yeah, we can all. It's like the cobbler's children are never very well shod themselves. You know, you know how to help other people and tell other people what to do. We don't always do it ourselves. I know my website could do with improvement.
I think designing is a bit of a nightmare, really. You just stare at things and you can't see what works, and you have to get someone else to tell you it just doesn't work. I just use themes. I always use themes. I'm not a designer anyway. I'm a developer.
Yeah. So what about your early career, Damian? What was your kind of, when you were younger, what was your inspiration or your background in kind of in life, really deciding what you wanted to do in life?
Well, I did at university, I did English literature, so I wasn't techie. And I came out of university never having touched a computer, written everything by hand. And really, it was just the fact that a degree in English literature doesn't get you much in terms of work. So I started working with computers at my first jobs, and I thought, well, this is okay. And then I retrained again at Birkbeck and did a course in computer science there, which was a proper training. And I found that pretty scary, to be honest. But in the end, I came out kind of a techie, and then just worked in the industry for about 15 years. But I suppose, you know, you just in London, you just work for so many different kinds of companies, and maybe, yeah, there's so much politics involved, and there's so many projects that start, and then for some reason that's way beyond you, they get scrapped, and quite a bit of infighting among techies, because developers can be quite headstrong about one way of doing things rather than another, you know. So there's various different things at the end that I sort of thought I'd like to get away. I don't want to be doing this when I retire, you know. I want to be doing something that seems to matter to me. Sure. So yeah, but it was a good training to work in that for 15 years. And obviously you get a grilling with everything. If you work in development, you meet other developers, and they're not the most merciful people about, you know, so you're kept on your toes, you know. So I did learn from coming from a woolly literature background. You learn a different way of approaching things, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. So have you kept in touch with any of your former colleagues?
No, I don't actually tend to do that. No, I don't. I on and off. Yeah, I think they're on Facebook. Yeah, I've got some friends on Facebook, but I haven't kept close tabs with any of them.
Yeah, I just wonder what they would think of your current, you know, iteration.
Probably, I can think of a few line managers who might be thinking, I can't believe that he is capable of running a thing at all, because I don't know. I'm not sure I was always the most disciplined person. So yeah, I think yeah, some of them would like it, but they'd also be bemused probably. I don't know. There wasn't. I didn't feel it wasn't something that was talked about. You know, I remember I started working on with IT for Communities, who are, I think they became Charity Digital or something. And I started working on projects for them. And I said to my boss, oh, this is a charity thing. I just need you to say, yes, I do this job. And he started warning me, well, you know, the Lloyd's List is a charity. So he seemed to take quite a skeptical view of charities altogether. So I think that maybe the world of of programming is quite insular in some ways, and people are focused on, it's quite a bubble, you know, and even to talk about doing something beyond it, or to talk about caring about what you do beyond just do you do unit testing, or do you do this or that? Do you, what is the actual purpose of what you're doing? And that conversation doesn't tend to happen very much. So
I think you'd find a home in the tech for good sector, Damian. As organisers in the in the tech for good space, the UK has recently launched a UK Tech for Good organisers Slack, and there's a website and stuff like that. So I think it'd be worth your while connecting there if you're not already.
Yeah, I'm not actually. I'm in something called the London Tech Collective, which was organised through Restart, and Restart have been very helpful. And the London Tech Collective has put me in touch with organisations like Lambeth Tech Aid, Mayor IT, who are local to London, and that's a good group. But yeah, in terms of the wider thing, I actually don't know much about it.
Yeah,
it sounds like that would be a network that would already be plugged into that sort of overall national
definitely.
thing.
Yeah. So COVID has been with us for about 12-18 months now. Damian, what are the main differences you see between what the work you were doing before and the work you're doing now?
I think what we're doing now has really changed. I think the fact that I'm doing this interview wouldn't have happened without the lockdown, because really it was much more like a community organisation, and a bit of work I did on the side, helping people with websites and, you know, that sort of thing. Now we've got this kind of production line with the laptops, and we've got this network of referrers who are sending people to us, that's raising our profile. And all of that as a result of the lockdown, as a result of us not being able to communicate with people face to face, with not being able to rely on them coming to us. It created a new situation, and you know, that it's completely transformed what we're doing, and it's made people much more, they see it a lot more. They see digital exclusion as a sort of crisis thing. It's not as important as food, but it's been bumped up to somewhere on that ranking.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. For sure. And now I tend to find, this isn't a political point, but this whole free broadband, which was put forward, you know, by one of the political like Jeremy Corbyn, and then sort of dismissed. If you talk about it now, people go, "Oh, that was one of his good ideas," you know. So
yeah, that is interesting, and it's I realize I'm kind of learning more about your organization as we listen and talk to you, and I see that like some organizations do just the digital skills, and some organizations do just the repurposing or the reuse of devices, and you're doing both, which sounds like you have a bigger perspective, a more holistic approach to digital inclusion. Yeah,
I mean, the thing is, it's to try and get the sort of, I see it as the high hanging fruit, the people that are really hard to reach. The school children are quite easy, just give them a laptop. But I mean, that wasn't easy, but that was a single thing you had to do. But the this is people who are based on the idea that maybe everyone has to be online. What do you do when a person really finds it difficult to develop those skills? Maybe you have to actually be with them a bit. Maybe you need some peer support or something like that. But it's about trying to think about how you deal with those problems, find out what doesn't work, and move on to the next thing. So I'm doing a project with Lewisham Homes where there are people who are stuck in a room and have no one to talk to, and we're doing something where we're going to try and get them on Zoom. We don't know how difficult it's going to be, and whether or not they'll ever be at a point where they can join a meeting by themselves. But it's about, I mean, I would never encourage anyone to use Zoom if they've got the option of meeting people face to face, but it's about people that are missing out on the digital side of things, and the idea that everyone should have an opportunity now, which I think is more recognized.
I think there's a wide range of people who find it difficult for one reason or another to regularly or often enough meet people face to face. And I think Zoom and products like that are really important for filling in the gaps. I mean, as you say, you would never want to rely on it entirely if you didn't have to. But I mean, there's lots of people with caring responsibilities or disabilities or mental health problems or whatever, that they might be able to find the time or the strength or the energy to do a 20-minute Zoom call every other day and maybe they'll only meet people, once or twice a week.
Yeah.
It's filling in it's making interaction more regular, less of a cost, whatever that means, to it. And I think that's one of the things that the founder of our program, John Popham, was most keen of all, was to let people use the technology to connect with other people, and just to put it no more, just to have a natter, to meet people that they might otherwise find it difficult or impossible to do. I absolutely agree with you. I would hate to rely. I have hated to rely upon Zoom for almost sort of 90%, 95% of interactions with everybody. Much great though that has been in itself, but equally, I don't want to lose it now that the pandemic is going. My particular disadvantage, I suppose, is geographical, because I'm stuck on a small island in the far north of Scotland. And without the pandemic, I doubt very much whether I'd be speaking to you and Paul. Well, I doubt very much if I'd be speaking to Pauline every week, and with you in a collection, a procession really of fantastic guests. So it's been a fantastic thing for me to be able to do this, even in a way that just wouldn't have been possible if I was expected to turn up to some studio somewhere even in Inverness or Edinburgh. I just wouldn't be able to get there. And I've seen this at every single online event I've been to. I've seen people express delight, really, that in their particular situation at home, they've been able to join in with this festival, this meeting, this professional network, whatever it is, in ways that they just wouldn't have been able to do before. So I'm really keen that we retain some of this stuff, even when I'll be relieved to be able to go and meet people in real life again. I can't wait, but I hope we can preserve some of this way of working as well as we go forward.
Yeah, and I thought I could add to that. I go to a few Zoom meetings which are more focused in Lewisham on the voluntary community sector, who are also concerned about these issues, but the conversation is different. And I'd say it's less positive because there's a lot of wariness of IT, a lot of confusion. And, there is a network that I've discovered in the way that you're describing during lockdown, and people like yourself, where there's a lot better information about what the possibilities are and a lot less fear of it, and a lot more clarity. And I think getting those two kinds of people together, because in London there's so many meetup groups about tech all up in central London. I've been to them, and there's a strong the audience they do tend to be young, they tend to be the sort of quite liberally minded sort of people, and then locally it's a slightly different kind of crowd, and it's about how you bring that to bring those two groups together, so the technical people can maximize their benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's there's a lot of work still to be done there, and the whole it's not a tension, it's just a difference between, as you say, what you might call sort of hyper local type grouping within a single borough or a single community within a borough, and a wider geographically spread community of interest. There's a lot that can be done to help people find their niche in both of those.
Yeah. And that's what I'm hopeful about. I do feel at the local level, there's a lot of talk, and it's hard to see the progress, and particularly the data issue, and I'm not a technical expert as such, and especially on networks and hardware and things. I've learned probably more about that working with this than I knew before. And so, getting that expertise to that level, and what could be done about, I don't know, community fiber and these sorts of things,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's someone out there that has a big idea, or sharing data, donating data. I mean, I don't know. You could have maybe a SIM that has a sort of flexible amount of data, so that you could give it out to various people, but in the knowledge they won't use all of it. I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, there's adverts on the television at the moment.
Yeah.
For at least one.
We've had a guest, Paul Russell, who has an idea about that, and is still talking to various agencies, big and small, about it. He lives in Birmingham, so I would like to see him prosper in kind of bring the idea to fruition in the West Midlands, but certainly for the whole of the country. But his idea is to kind of for people who have excess data on their contracts at the end of the month to be able to share that with people who need that data. But that would take cooperation of the big telecoms companies, and that's going to be the sticking point. But he's not the only one talking about it now, so it may happen. And certainly the pandemic has been an opportunity, I suppose, for those of us who recognize the need to see the access as a requirement, not an option. I was talking to somebody in another reuse project last week, and she was saying actually that it's taken her about 11 years to become profitable. That this is not something that happens overnight. You can't just make money. It's not a way of making money quickly. But she was saying she's about to start an MBA on something about essential furniture in the home and the effect on well-being, and she considers an IT device as essential furniture as well, and so do I. So we're looking forward to having her on the show at some stage to talk about her ideas about that.
I'm sure I've seen a television advert for one of the big telecoms companies suggesting that you can join together in groups and redeem unused data for this, that, or the other trinket thingy. So that's edging towards a situation where you could almost imagine that organization then adding side by side, or you can donate it to this scheme which will be redistributed to people. So maybe there's a little bit of progress, a little bit of movement there that with a bit of pushing from Paul and others could come up with something something useful.
So Paul Russell, that's quite a common name, I would imagine. So is there a sort of a thing to Google for?
Yes, we can.
It's Citizen Sim.
Citizen Sim is the project. Yeah.
Oh, right. Citizen. Okay. Good name.
We saw it on YouTube. In fact, it was one of the projects that John kind of surfaced for us to have a look at. He's on Twitter. I think it's Brummy. Let me just check because I've got his details here in front of me. He's IBMP Russell on Twitter.
That's right.
He's also got another Twitter, I think. But yeah, that's one. Yeah.
If you Google Citizen Sim and Paul Russell, you'll find his original thing was a YouTube video explaining the concept, and it's a really excellent watch for a couple of minutes.
Okay, that sounds interesting. What was that other scheme? Sorry, was that the company where they have a shared thing?
It's not a company yet, but it's what did you call it? Sweyn, what was the reference?
It was a television advert. I can't remember which.
Citizen Sim on YouTube. Yeah.
No, the other thing I was talking about was just an advert that I saw half watched on the television. Which was I can't remember which of the big networks it was, but they had this new family-based or friends and family type scheme to both to share around unused data, but also to redeem a gigabyte at a time data for other stuff. So what in my mind, what I was thinking was, well, if they're prepared to do that, prepared to give things away in lieu of using data, and it's not a huge step from that to asking them to collect a big pool of data that could then be managed for this sort of digital inclusion work. But I mean, I've not yet, and I think Paul hadn't when we spoke to him either, not yet really seen any sort of description about how it would work commercially for the big companies, because presumably their marketing assumes that most of us won't use most of our data a lot of the time anyway, and therefore it might not be as straightforward as we think just to suddenly start using it all for this sort of digital inclusion purpose.
I mean, I imagine it's a technical rather than a commercial rather than technical decision.
Yes, I imagine it is.
But I don't understand their industry. It's very complicated. So
yes.
Yeah. Damian, we're just going to cover a few stories that we've picked up along the way, and feel free to comment on those. We just like to pick up, kind of things that have been mentioned, usually on Twitter. So we'll just go through a few of those before we come towards the end of the show.
Okay.
So Sweyn, the first one was the 5 principles for post-COVID-19 digital healthcare, and this was one we saw from healthwatch.co.uk. And there is a report pointing to the need for a bold program of investment in digital literacy and online access, while emphasizing the importance of maintaining face-to-face methods to ensure no one falls through the gaps. So they've got a list of suggestions that they want to kind of see carried out. The first one is to maintain traditional models of care alongside remote methods and support patients to choose the most appropriate appointment type to meet their needs. So that sounds fairly self-explanatory. Second one, to invest in support programs to give as many people as possible the skills to access remote care. And I think it hasn't been as good as they would have hoped over the pandemic, but it certainly has improved. There's been a lot more digital video consultations and stuff. Third one is to clarify patients' rights regarding remote care, ensuring people with support or access needs are not disadvantaged when accessing care remotely. And we've talked before on the program about making sure that we have alternatives to digital when people want them as an option. Fourthly, enable practices to be proactive about inclusion by recording people's support needs. So people don't have to explain every time that they have certain needs. It's debilitating enough to have particular needs, but then if you have to explain them every time, it's even harder. And the final point was to commit to digital inclusion by treating the internet as a universal right. And this apparently refers to the report from the House of Lords COVID-19 Committee Beyond Digital, which recommended the government consider introducing a legal right to internet access, giving people a ring-fence benefits entitlement to access affordable internet. And the report kind of concluded that in fact, the national ambition to provide digital first primary care to everyone should be underpinned by a universal right to internet access, ensuring the NHS remains genuinely free at the point of use. So I think we can all agree that would be a good thing to see. And we have covered previously zero, what's it called, Sweyn? The access to certain websites are zero rated.
Zero rated, yes. So
Yeah.
that if you go to certain sites using a mobile phone data package, then the time you spend on those sites doesn't count against your data package. It's essentially free.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are other countries that have taken this step to make internet connection a basic right. I think Finland was the first country to do it. It was some years ago now. I suppose that the issue with that is how a country ensures that it genuinely is affordable and is adequate for the purpose of interactive video, which is in the end what defines the connection speed that you need, because inevitably these days you're going to want to do some kind of digital video interactions, and if your link doesn't cater for that, that's not really good enough.
No, not these days. The next item we picked up was the DCMS committee digital literacy event, which had an international focus on the 18th of June, and we saw this in a tweet where they laid out the questions that they were asking. People were being asked, how do you define literacy? Do you prefer media, digital, data, information literacy, and why? What are key insights from your work on things that did not work well? What are key insights from your work on things that worked well? Where do mis and disinformation fit in digital literacy, in your opinion? And how did the COVID-19 pandemic affect the way you think and work on your project? And did it change your priorities and areas of focus? So participants at that event were invited to submit questions to the panel using the chat function. And I would really like to see who attended that event and what the answers were to those questions. So they are some of the key questions from a learning point of view anyway that we would like to see answered. And there's a list on screen Sweyn has of the people who spoke at this event, and they were Professor Payal Arora, Professor at Erasmus University, Dr. Marielza Oliveira, Director at UNESCO, Professor Colin Ryan-Smith, Associate Professor and Director of the Community Informatics Lab, Simmons University, and Professor Marie Gillespie, Professor of Sociology at the Open University. And the Dr. Eleanor Carmy, I think, was the chair of the event. So I would really like to follow up on that one and see what the answers were, because it was an international panel, but I think, as we have covered before in this program, we can learn a lot from other countries, and other countries hopefully can learn some stuff from us as well. Damian, are you taking part in debates on digital literacy, or are you asked to comment on those things?
No, not really. I mean, that panel looked very prestigious, and I was part of. I did go along to these meetings organised by Digital Unite and Good Things Foundation, and then Carnegie. They had what there was a sort of government centralised attempting to get digital literacy improved, and it was also associated with Martha Lane Fox and various people. And again, I feel that there's still a sort of disconnect, which is probably just a matter of the practical issues between the local level and that higher level. So at the higher level, there are big ideas spoken about digital literacy, and then how that filters through, at least in Lewisham, it's a very distant relationship, and probably things like the Hubbub scheme are the ones that are most effective. I mean, the digital champions, I don't know if that's something you've talked about on this program, but that's a program that's worked through, I think, government to get people who work in sort of admin or customer relations in one way or another up to the level of being able to be a sort of a mentor, a digital mentor, which isn't too much of a leap.
Yeah. But
that hasn't really become commonplace in the broader community. So around here, so to be honest, those sorts of debates, I suppose I tend to feel I've got to get on with doing stuff, and that's you know, there's a lot of discussion. I think personally the concept of digital literacy, I'm not sure about it, because I don't think you can ever be digitally literate. I think by the time I'm 70, if I'm around, I think I'll probably be relatively digitally illiterate compared to what I was, because things are always changing. You know, that I think it's sort of a bit hopeful that we'll get to a point where people just know what to do and they can get on with it. So I think people are always going to be confused by.
I agree with you. I think that digital literacy, encouraging people to improve their skills and so on, I think it's an ongoing task with a moving target.
Yeah.
For precisely the reasons that you say, and while it's good to kind of see the absolute numbers by whatever the definition of digital exclusion come down, we've got to be careful that we don't just see that as the end point, because you'll always have a rolling requirement for people to learn the new things that are coming along, even if they know the digital stuff of today.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Referring to Finland, as you did, Sweyn, the next story is actually about Finland, and the heading is Guided Digital Skills Training Enhances Older People's Digital Skills and Social Relations. So as they say, as we've talked about before on the show, older people need digital skills training to learn to use digital technology more independently. Well, some of them do more independently, but they also seek digital training opportunities because of the social benefits they offer, according to a recent study from the University of Eastern Finland. And this was published in the International Journal of Lifelong Education. The study examined perceived benefits of digital skills training among older adult learners, their teachers and peer tutors. And data for the study was collected in liberal adult education organizations such as community colleges, as well as peer tutoring sessions organized by third sector actors, which would be the kind of sessions that you used to offer, Damian. So the postdoctoral researcher Kaisa Pauline said that the perceived benefits of digital skills were often related to the ease of everyday life, such as being able to use electronic services, leisure time, or staying in touch with friends and family. However, digital skills training sessions are also beneficial in terms of social relations. According to the study, the training sessions were a good opportunity to meet other people and to establish friendships, and that in turn was the source of more inner motivation and activity in older people's lives, which supported their personal development. So, you know, the comment at the end is, for older people, participation in digital skills training is often a combination of individual and social reasons. So I think we often think that it's about, we haven't got, that you've got a thing on screen that's not what I was talking about, Sweyn.
Oh, pardon me.
It was anyway, the digital skill, it was the UEF.fi. Yeah, I think that's, no, guided. Yeah, that's the one. So, you know, they talk about how, you know, you need to get online to learn, but actually just be able to see, like as John said, as you said before, you know, having a natter, just having a chat with people about something you care about. is often the most important thing people can teach other people to do.
Oh, I just like to chip in and say, yeah, that's really what I found. Yeah, it's very important. It could be a whole new social outlet for people rather than making people less connected face to face. It can make them more, because it's a new kind of club that you can run at your local centre.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And people can hop on and off. I was just talking to some friends about this at the weekend. People can hop on and off a call. They can, deal with their families. For families, it's been really good. Another guest we're going to have on later in the year is coming from a domestic violence charity, and like they pivoted all their programs online during lockdown, and it has worked very well. And people who've used the service have said, being able to, support their children and kind of come back quickly back into the program has made an awful lot of difference to them. So it's been really good.
I think the pandemic has forced us all of us relatively privileged people, the pandemic and the stay-at-home message has forced us all to address what the issues are about connecting to online stuff, which are beyond the technology. Whether, it's where do I do it from? Do I have a quiet enough space? Do I have enough space at all? Am I in a place where I can't be overheard if that's important to me? And all of these things. And I think that we've all been forced to confront those issues to some degree or another during the pandemic. And I think that's been no bad thing in terms of just kind of empathy in providing services to people, and understanding that those factors actually exist. Without some basic stuff, some basic space, some basic knowledge, some basic data, a device, we are excluded. And the number of excluding factors and the type of factors they are, it's surprisingly a long list.
Okay, we're gonna try and squeeze in two more stories before we close today. The next one is young people aren't digital natives in the way employers need, and this is from a website called feweek.co.uk. And this is someone called Bev Jones, who says being a digital native for employers is very different to how young people use their devices daily. Generation Z, which is this young people as they're called at the moment, is regarded as digitally enabled, the generation that has grown up with technology being an inherent part of their lives in the way they communicate, socialize, and access entertainment. So she asks, so why then are so many employers struggling to find young people who are equipped with adequate levels of digital literacy? Through their partnership work with employers, they know that young people leaving school and college are not the digital natives we assume them to be. Yes, they have their phone attached to them all day, and many are gaming experts. This is quite different from having the digital skills needed for employment, and these skills encompass a wide range of competencies, many of which are assumed to be innate, but they're not. For example, she says, communicating online is more complex than young people may think. Using the right tone and language is a skill that may not come naturally and has to be adapted to specific situations. Sending formal emails is a key business skill which students need to be taught as such a different form of communication when compared to everyday interactions with friends. And I think, I've heard anecdotal stories, not just during lockdown, but for any friends who are online, you automatically put kisses or emojis in, and like formal business communication doesn't adapt well to that sort of effort. They also talk about the same being true when it comes to taking part in business video conferences being dramatically different from FaceTime calls with peers. And so the recommendation is colleges must start with these basics as they're crucial building blocks to sound digital capability. And also the kind of the remark as well that they need to ensure young people can keep themselves, their data, and other people's data safe. Cybersecurity is a huge industry catalyzed by the growth in online activity, and young people moving into employment must understand the importance of cyber safety, including their own well-being when operating in a digital world. Well, I think that's that might be not a wake-up call maybe for some people, assuming that, because I still hear it, oh, young people are digital natives. Well, they may have a device, they may have several devices. I can run 3 or 4 at the same time as well. Doesn't mean they know how to work in the world of work. So
even just having a sensible looking email address. I know a young person. who used to be a great Formula One fan, and her email address all the way through school was Shumi Ferrari 3178 or something. And
Yeah.
she was advised eventually that maybe having that as her contact on a CV probably wasn't the best thing to do. Maybe something more related to her own name might be might be sensible. It's just little things like that.
Yeah.
If you're not
Yes.
told, you don't necessarily realize the significance.
I think
Yeah.
maybe the move towards mobile technology rather than sort of laptop technology. A lot of homes in Lewisham, they did. The problem was they had internet, but they didn't have a laptop to work on when the lockdown happened. So that suggests, again, they're not maybe practicing those office type skills.
Yeah. And our final story, I don't know if Sweyn, if you were able to pick it up, it was one I picked up this morning. New data to help close Philadelphia's digital divide. And I thought this was interesting because this is a survey that Philadelphia is going to be surveying their residents to better understand gaps in internet access and support a citywide digital equity strategy. So they're going to contact residents by phone in six languages to ensure that households without internet are reached and the samples are representative. They're going to survey 2,500 adult residents selected by random digit dial, including a minimum of 450 households with K-12 children. That's children under a certain age. And this research will seek to determine how many residents still need a reliable internet connection, how people view internet options, and barriers to access. So again, as we often cover in this show, things that happen in other countries, in other parts of the country as well, we can all learn from. So I might be bringing that to meetings I'm going to about digital inclusion, because the data is very important to have. We need the data to know how best to help people and whereabouts they need to be helped. Damian, we're coming to the end of the show. Sadly, I think we could talk to you again as with other guests for a long time. You do so much, and we admire what you do and support it, and wish you all the best with your ongoing work. And I'm sure we'll come across each other in the ether over the next while again. If people want to contact you, Damian, what's the best way to contact you on the project?
Yeah, can you contact me at Damian? Have you got my email? Damian, it's DAMIAN at catbytes, CATBYTES.community. That's
Great.
it. And I'd be very pleased to hear from anyone, because hopefully I'm speaking to a national audience of people doing maybe similar things. So I'll be very interested to hear from you.
Sure.
Thanks
Great.
very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Great to have you
Damian.
on.
And we hope all our listeners have enjoyed the show, and we hope you have a great week.
And we're back when, Pauline?
We're back on the 9th of August for Dr. Tech.
So we're having a bit of a summer break, but have a good summer, everyone.
Yeah. Hope Radio will continue with you. Don't worry.
Oh, right. Am I staying?
No, you can. We're going to end the show now, Damian, but if you hang on, we'll have a chat after the show. So you just go silent again.
Thanks.